welcome to today's SEMrush webinar. Hope you're all good, staying at home and coronavirus free. So today I am joined by Sam Ruchlewicz, or something along those lines.
Good enough.
Sam, I hate those names, man. I really do. I always get the pronunciation wrong, but welcome anyway. Is this your first SEMrush webinar, Sam?
No, I've done a bunch. I did some SEO surgeries. I've done a few other random ones, but first one in a while.
Yeah, I've not come across you on them, but obviously they do them in all sorts of countries and everything else. But I was curious to know if the audience would know of you. And hello to the audience. We've got a lot of people in here already. I see Andy Drinkwater, William Rock. Hello from rainy Southern California. I don't believe it's raining in California. Please, I love California, and please let me keep thinking it's sunny, even if it's not. But yeah, let us all know where you're from. Sam, where are you based in the world?
I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland. So East Coast, nice and rainy. So if you hear thunder in the background, we're real sorry about that. But we had 2 nice days, and well, that's all we're allowed.
I think I'm based in Glasgow, Scotland, which I'm sure many people know from the accent. But we actually have around 17, 18 degrees, believe it or not, which is insane. So I'm actually glad to hear you've got it raining, and we've got something good going for a change. So anyway, Sam, just before we go into the presentation, so today's presentation is going to be about the Traffic Analytics tool. But before we go into that, we'll just let people join. There's a lot of people still joining, but can you tell us, for anyone who's watching who's not familiar with what you do or where what your experience is, tell us a bit about your background.
Sure. So I have a bit of a non-traditional background in the marketing space. I worked in finance and real estate for a while, then made the transition over. And for about 5 years and some change, I've worked at Warshawski, which is a boutique digital communications firm. We're based in Baltimore. We have offices in New York and DC. And we work with a variety of companies all across the globe. So right now, my clients are anything from global biotech companies, boutique consultancies, consumer packaged goods, real estate, senior care, energy and utilities, kind of runs the gamut. And we do everything from paid search and paid social advertising to SEO services, as well as creative, website, etc. So we're a full service shop. And my role there is leading the entire digital group and the analytics group. So I wear lots of hats and I do stuff. And every once in a while, Anton rips me into doing webinars.
Yeah, good old webinars, good to do now and again. I'm enjoying it, and I see someone there, Carol, saying, hello, I just seen you at SEO Spring Training. Yeah, SEO Spring Training was an online conference the other day. Amazing knowledge. But yeah, online webinars and conferences are certainly good to interact with other people. But we've got a lot of guys coming in here from Texas, India, British Columbia, Chicago, yeah, a whole ton of people. So welcome, you guys. So what we're going to do is just jump into the webinar. So for the first 10 minutes, I'm going to show you what Traffic Analytics is and how the tool functions. And then we're going to get Sam on, who's going to show us how he uses the tool on a day-to-day basis, the ins and outs of how it actually works in the data that it produces. So we'll do that. Then we will have questions and answers. And the questions and answers don't have to be relating to the tool. If you've got questions and you want to pick Sam's brain or my brain or whatever it's going to be, probably better picking Sam's brain. He's got more of a brain than me. But
I don't think so. But
yeah, put your questions in there and we'll answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. So yeah, I just seen Andy Drinkwater saying roll on Brighton SEO. Yep, I'm dying for a beer. Can't wait. But I'm going to start sharing my screen just now, and we will show you what this Traffic Analytics does. So traffic analytics, first and foremost, where do you find it? So on the left-hand side, you will find, give me a second, under marketing insights, you'll see traffic analytics. You can also find it under domain analytics as well. Traffic analytics is there. So any of the two, but it takes you to this one anyway. And what is traffic analytics? I'm not even going to lie here. I didn't even know this existed. At one point, I was flabbergasted. So we all know that in general, when you go onto SEMrush and you do a generic overview, it gives you a kind of rough estimation of the traffic to a website. And I'm sure we all know that sometimes that traffic is not always that accurate. However, traffic analytics is a different beast altogether. So you can look at your competition. There's no point in analysing your own traffic. That's pointless. You know what traffic you're getting if you look at your analytics. But for example, competition for me would be someone like Mr. Matthew Woodward's. So I'm going to stick his domain in, and it brings up this nice overview of what's going on with Mr. Woodward's website. And you'll be able to see his traffic over the last 6 months, 12 months, or whatever. Now, we'll go down and show you all of the stuff in a minute. One quick feature I want to highlight, which is pretty good, and I'm sure a lot of you at home will be doing this anyway, is doing pitches on Zoom. There's actually a new button on the top right-hand corner here, pitch mode. So if you're talking to a potential customer and you're going through some SEMrush stuff or whatever, showing them some data, then pitch mode gives you a nice clean background and you can just scroll around and pitch this tool or the data to the customer, which is quite clean and nice, clean and tidy. So that's what pitch mode is. Obviously, as normal, you can click the PDF button and export it as a PDF. But going through the tabs, obviously this is a generic overview, and you can benchmark your website against your competition. So we can stick in someone like Mr. Matt Diggity and various other competitors here, and we're able to see that the purple line is Woodward, and we can see the red line is Diggity. And Diggity's obviously, as of February, been doing a serious amount of work. His visits to his website are going through the roof. You can see that there's a massive increase there. Mr. Woodward's is dipping slightly, but you know, Matt Diggity's doing a lot of work there. So we can see just by that chart that Diggity's doing a lot of work, and we can see if we scroll down, you know, the visits. There's a visits tab here which shows us how many visits, how many of them are unique visitors, average visit duration, bounce rate, and you can, you know, as I say, check 6 months, 12 months, or all time. Now we can also, by the way, guys, before I go any further, there are SEMrush success, customer success people in the live chat. So if you've got any questions about how this tool works or where it pulls the data from, ask them in there. They'll be able to give you the answers to those questions. However, traffic sources, so we can go down further and it will show us whether it's direct traffic, referral traffic, search traffic, social traffic, or paid traffic. And we can see here that both Matt Diggity and Matthew Woodward are doing a hell of a lot on generic search. We can see that Matthew Woodward's doing a lot more on social media than Matt Diggity. Referral traffic, not far off 50-50. Direct traffic, Matthew Woodward's doing slightly better. We can also see where the traffic's coming from as well in terms of countries and whatnot. So you're able to find out a lot more about what the competition's doing. So that's a generic overview and some of the visits tabs there. So you can find out who's doing what and where their traffic's coming from. You've also got the next tab along, which is the audience overlap tab. So there's a whole bunch of tabs here, which we'll go through in a minute. Some of them don't really do that much at the moment, but audience overlap, there is a 2.94% overlap between Matt Diggity and Matthew Woodward. So that's a nice start. You can see there's room for improvement there for Matt Diggity to move into, they don't do the same stuff, although they're both digital marketers. They both do slightly, probably get slightly different audiences. Traffic sources was in the overview anyway, but we can basically see that search engines, direct, social networks, referring websites like Aweber or whatever, are all parts of the traffic that comes to these guys' websites. And you can see Matthew Woodward's is in purple, Matt Diggity's lines are in red, and you can see a kind of percentage as to what traffic's coming from which of these kind of sources. And I know Matthew Woodward is massive on WPX hosting, and Matt Diggity probably doesn't have an article about that one, which is why he's winning that one. So you can see all sources, referring sites, search engines, and social networks. You can break all of that down using those tabs there, and that's what traffic sources does for you. So as I say, that's the tabs right there. You can break all of that down and get a rough idea of what's coming from where. Top pages is the top pages. I think our rivals have had that tab on their website for a while. I'm not going to mention the rival's name, but we can see the kind of top pages, and some stats based on those top pages for our competition. And you can input, a whole bunch of your competitors in here and find out which pages are driving the most traffic, and obviously replicate that for yourself. And obviously Matthew Woodward's homepage is the main one, but after that it's his link building strategies which are driving a whole bunch of traffic. And if you've not got link building strategies page, you maybe want to start getting one. Now over here on the right hand side you'll see table settings. So if you want to export bits of this data or eliminate bits of it, you just untick the ones that you don't want to show up on that table and export as you please. So you'll be able to see I've stripped out a lot of stuff there, and it's only giving you unique page views and unique visitors. You can, or go in and add whatever else you want to show a potential customer. So you can eliminate some of the data as well. As we know, sometimes too much data makes your job as a salesperson a hell of a lot more difficult with some of the customers out there. So be careful what you show them, and just show them what they need to see. So that's what Top Pages is. That's a new tab on there. Geo Distribution. So this gives you an idea of what Matthew Woodward, where a lot of Matthew Woodward's traffic comes from, and we can basically scroll down and see all the percentages. And again, you may want to tailor your website to target some of these audiences. So that is the global traffic distribution tab. Destination sites. So you'll be able to see some of the stuff on there that Matthew Woodward has as destinations on his website. As I said, he does a lot of stuff with WPX hosting. He's done a big case study as to why he uses WPX hosting, because he's had loads of other failed hosting companies try to manage his website online. So you'll be able to see that's kind of top destination pages there on his website. Also, if a guy's got subdomains, which Matthew doesn't, you're able to analyze some of the stuff on there. And bulk analysis, you can analyze a whole bunch of this stuff, up to 200 domain names, just enter one per line, and you can do a bulk analysis of this traffic analytics, if you like. Now, there's a couple of other little tabs just below traffic analytics, which are still integrated into the tool. So I'm just going to quickly talk through them as well. Now, again, you can customize your market here. with the blue button. I'm just going to analyze a couple of websites here. So digitimarketing.com, and we'll put in neilpatel.com. So we'll analyze these three guys, and it will be able to show us, based on these three domain names, a whole bunch of data: traffic generation strategy, social media distribution strategy, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we can analyze all of that kind of market data there. And we can also look at other relevant websites and what traffic they're getting. So that's going to, there's two tabs here. So there's all market and a very narrow focus. Now, I think that's self-explanatory. It's going to give us websites that are similar to Matthew Woodward. So you've got Search Engine Journal, Black Hat World, crazyegg.com, and a whole bunch of other websites. And it's giving you an idea of what traffic these websites are actually generating. And it might surprise you. There's websites here, like Black Hat World, for example, getting 750,000 hits a month, of which, it's all a mixture of, all different types of traffic. And obviously, if you click narrow focus, you'll be able to see that, it's a bit more tailored towards the things that Matthew Woodward maybe talks about in his website as well. And we've obviously got SEMrush, Moz, and a whole bunch of other stuff on there. Robbie Richards. I'm just scrolling through to see what else is on there. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of information that you can get from the Market Explorer. So obviously it's just exploring your market and giving you an overview as to who's doing what and how well they're doing, and who's getting the best search traffic. You can narrow all this down here. Share of visits. We'll go to search traffic. Moz are still getting the most search. SEMrush are second. I think SEMrush were second still, with referral traffic. Social media, moz.com. So you can see who's doing what and how well they're doing, and give yourself a kick up the backside to be able to crack on and try and get some more of the traffic that's out there. Now the traffic, as far as I'm concerned, is fairly accurate based on my own website. But you can also look at traffic rank here, and you'll be able to see some of the kind of big websites that are out there. And you can do this by localization. You can do it all over, all regions, or I can put this down to United Kingdom. So I'm going to narrow it down to the United Kingdom. And it's going to show us some relevant websites and what traffic they're getting as well. They're not totally relevant, but it's got like Google, YouTube, Facebook, and kind of what they're doing and what kind of traffic they're getting, whether it's desktop, mobile, unique visitors, bounce rate, and all that kind of stuff. So you can scroll through this and you can see how well people are really doing, in terms of big websites out there. So I think overall, the traffic analytics tool, you can get a lot more from it than just generically looking at people on SEMrush and seeing what traffic they get. You can actually see where it comes from, and it's very simple and easy to use. You simply put the competitor's domain name in, and then you can look at other ones. If you want to analyze 2 or 3, at the same time. So that is the traffic analytics tool, just a generic overview of it. But what we're going to now have is we're going to have Mr. Sam. I'm not even going to try and say your surname, but Sam is going to go through the tool in more detail. Obviously, I didn't want to go into too much in terms of details and stats and figures, because that's Sam's job. I'm just showing how the tool works. So Sam, you can share your screen and steal the show.
Sounds great. Let's do that. And there we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. So we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into some different ways that we use the traffic analytics tool for our current clients. So the first kind of not client, but type of site I want to look at. We do have a client in the auction space. So they do a lot of fine art, luxury, property, jewelry, auction-y things. And one of the biggest competitors that we have is a company called Heritage, boutique auction house. So one of the things that we always want to look at is, first, where do we rank relative to them? And unfortunately, our confidentiality kind of bans us from talking about all of it. But a couple of the other competitors I can add here, just pretending we work for Sotheby's, is I can always look and say, okay, just like Craig showed you, here I've added both to my benchmark. I can look at my visits, and I can also look at this over time. So here you can see I've got a 6-month view, and nothing too exciting, except for in March, I'm looking at a pretty significant uptick. And if I want to go back, I can go all the way back up to about end of 2016. So I get a robust data set. And the one thing I always think is interesting for our clients is looking and pairing some of this SEMrush data with some of our other competitive intelligence data. So sometimes we'll use a site like Moat, or we'll look at the Facebook. If we see a significant amount of traffic from social using this traffic sources, and I see an uptick in a month, we might go back to the Facebook ads library and say, okay, what were you running then? What creative was working? So this is a really easy way for us to understand kind of how things have evolved over time, as well as how can we take what looks like a spike and turn that into competitive intelligence. So again, one way to do that is just to look at the advertising campaigns in market using a secondary tool, or even publicly available social data. But that's one option. We've got plenty more. So if I want to shrink this down now to just a simple year, I can see that in September I saw an uptick, and then again in March. One feature I hope SEMrush adds at some point is like a notations feature, just so we can mark this up. But anyway, very exciting. The next area that I want to focus on here is, honestly, the company info is incredibly helpful, especially if we're looking at different competitors, going all the way down to the end of the page. It's powered by Crunchbase. Before this was integrated, one of the things that we subscribed to was Crunchbase, just because this has now been integrated and we can use it for a lot of the same purposes. We were able to reduce a cost, which as an agency was cool, and we still get the majority of the data. So let's dive in a little bit further, and let me add a few more of our competitors that we're all aware of. So we've got Christie's, which everyone's heard of. We've got Sotheby's, which everyone has heard of. We've got Heritage. Doyle's a little small, but we can do Skinner's. That's a Boston-based auction house. So when I add all of these, one of the first things I look at on the overlap is how big of a unique audience does our competitor have? Where are we relative to that? And then how big are these overlaps? In this particular case, you can see that the overlaps are very small. And this is largely a product of regionalization. And I can't get more specific than the United States, but still gives me a really good idea of how big the total market is and potentially some options that we have for pursuing that traffic. Now, once I've kind of identified, okay, this is kind of our overlap, this is where our audience looks like, my next step is usually to head over to the Market Explorer. And one of my favorite features here is this growth quadrant, because it helps me really identify who are our market leaders, where are our followers, and then more importantly, scrolling down, where are those in-market audiences, because that's what's going to inform a lot of our marketing for this. Now, if this would load, we're having a little bit of internet lag, but I believe in this. It's going to load. Anyway, once this populates, we're going to basically see our market leaders. We're going to see our market followers. We're going to see the growth opportunities, and then we're going to see our laggards. So the people that are on the bottom, we probably don't want to be like, but there we go. So here you can see my established players, my niche players, my market leaders, worth point, which I've honestly never heard of. And you can always get rid of a competitor and it will resize the graph. And the US Mint, for instance, nope, sorry, not interested. This gives me a pretty good understanding of kind of where Heritage, the auction house we're looking at based in Texas, falls, as well as maybe where it falls next to these other two players. Neither of these are actually auction houses. They're platforms that use other auctions as is Live Auctioneers. So I can see that really we're in pretty good company right now. And if I expand this out to 20, once again, you can see that we are in a relatively strong position as a leader or game changer. So very exciting. Share of visits gives you a sense of the total traffic in the competitive set. Where is it and where are we? So right in the middle, that's okay. And you can always add any of these to a unique competitive list. But where I think share of visits gets really interesting and exciting is when we start breaking it down, not just from total, because the average hides the insight, but let's get into specifics. Social. How are we doing from a social standpoint? We moved up 2 ranks. That's good. It's an area of investment. And how is our traffic generation strategy related to the total market, right? So here you can see social. We are a little bit below the market. You can see that just a hair, 27.1 versus 27.9, nothing to worry about. But an area where it looks like we're leading is referral, and I can always look at the referrals and verify that data. Guess not. Now, other interesting features tend to be our spikes and kind of where are things going in terms of audience behavior. Now, what I can see here, my audience tends to be predominantly older, and they tend to be predominantly shopping for these niche products. So one of the insights that I would take from this is a lot of these in-market audiences line up very nicely with my in-market audiences, either on my DSP or if you're just buying through Google or Facebook directly, any of those ad manager platforms, you'll find a lot of these same in-market audiences, something that's a little bit similar, but it's enough that you can take this data that you've gotten right here and pair it with what's available in your DSP and very quickly find some of these audiences that your competitor already has. This is especially true once you've seen this overlap and the audience insights that we're going to go to next, as you're building custom intent or custom affinity audiences. So I might add a couple competitors right here. So Doyle and Sotheby's, 2 auction houses. I can look and I can say, okay, if I add Doyle, that's my shared audience is 1.4 out of their 26.7K. Making that investment seems like a pretty good idea. Likewise, if I do Sotheby's, they've got an audience of 476,000, and our overlap here is only about 23K. So out of this total audience of just about 500,000 people, my overlap is going to be roughly 5%, maybe even a little bit less. That means that if I build a custom affinity audience or a custom in-market audience in Google, or I use competitor targeting, I've got a really good chance of reaching new unique users. That's even more true when we go to the top pages. And in the auction space, this gives us a ton of insight into what people are actually going for in terms of where's the activity coming from. And even more exciting for this, especially in a setup like this where I can see so many different types of goods, I can see specifically where are we getting those people from. So for instance, comics seem to be coming in via social and direct. Great. That can inform my marketing strategy right away, because now I know if I'm going for comics, I'm trying to get those people in the door, my best chance is social. And I can really target based on that. Referral traffic, you can see for coins and for our homepage. Coins and currency are generally the same thing. Referral is pretty good. Comics is a third, which is interesting. And if I look at this, I can see majority mobile. I can get a detailed breakdown on all of my sources. And I can use this data again to either export, put into a pitch deck, or quickly send over to see what else we can do in terms of reaching these people. The one other nice feature that I'll often do, especially in an instance like this, and I want to just highlight, is I have coins, I have currency, and if I scroll down just a little bit more, I'll see currency.ha, I'll see currency again, I see coins again. Exporting this to a CSV, a couple quick consolidations in Excel, and you can all of a sudden get a really clear picture of where this traffic is coming from and what it's doing. So let's jump back over to our traffic sources now that we have a clear idea. And let's look at our referring sites, because this is going to give us a good idea of, within those little sections, where is some of this stuff coming from? And I can see comicarttracker.com. That's definitely a great opportunity. I can see some New York Times, some syndicated platforms that I can advertise on. I can see our wine, and then I can see DoubleClick, which suggests that we've got some paid advertising going on. Same thing on social. This gives me a very clear idea that Facebook is a dominant channel. Pinterest is a surprise, but the one that it doesn't usually clarify, that is always a one to look out for, is Quora. It sometimes gets categorized as a search engine, sometimes gets characterized as a social network, sometimes as a regular site, but that's always an interesting one. Reddit, the same way. You can see that we're doing some stuff on Reddit, and that's giving us some really good information. Destination sites, I think, is interesting only insofar as it sometimes gives you insight into what people are clicking off of, and if there's blog pages or other links that they've included that are helpful. I don't think it's particularly useful for a lot of what we do in terms of who is our audience, where can we find them, how unique are they, and what can we do about it in terms of how can we reach them, get them, convert them. The other thing that I will do, especially on our top pages report, just going right back to that, is if I see a page that's doing phenomenally well, either in terms of bringing in search traffic, for instance, right here, I very well might just look at this and say, hey, we've got 4 or 5 really high performing pages, and then start to try to understand what is going into this page that's making it perform well. The great thing about analytics tool, especially when compared to the regular domain analytics available with SEMrush, is that this is actual clickstream data. It's compiled from a number of sources. It's run through a few machine learning models that SEMrush has developed. So it's actual user data. It's not extrapolated data from organic position plus expected click-through rate, which is what you get in domain analytics. The accuracy here is much better. It is not perfect. It is better. And especially from where we're coming from, if we're going to benchmark performance, for instance, using these numbers for page views, visitors, etc., looking at things like performance, having data that's relatively close to accurate is really helpful. The other really exciting feature that we have is the bulk analytics. And this is an area where you can just enter 15, 20 different domains, one after another, and get a full readout. That's gold sometimes, especially if there's competitors that we've identified in the Market Explorer that we're not familiar with. Great opportunity to really hone in on them and see what's happening. That's the top line overview. And then there's a couple just really interesting features that I think are great and that we use all the time. So one is our relevant sites. This gives us kind of a breakdown of all of the different sites that SEMrush, through their entire database, has flagged as important or relevant. Some of these are not competitors. Some of these, like coin trackers, just in the auction space, Coin Week, all of these are informational sites. They're sites where our audience is likely to be, but that we might not have thought of before. When you're advertising on a DSP, and I can look and see some of these all market relevant sites, especially for a very specific page, that gives me some insight into where the people that are going to these pages are also going, I can add these placements into our DSP, into Google Ads, and I can now target and say, you know what? I know that if you're going to Heritage's coin page, you're really likely to be also checking out coin trackers. You're really likely to be checking out Collectors Weekly. You're really likely to be checking out USA Coin Book. Now, instead of having to bid against them on a branded SERP, which is going to be expensive, instead of having to go after them in a low funnel, high intent area, I can now take a step back and say, I know where you are. I can put my stuff out there, let you come to me. That's one. And this is something that anybody can do. You can export it. And the great thing about the export is that you can then just take the export and upload it into your DSP. So you don't have to type all these out again and spell them wrong, if you're like me and can't type sometimes. Now, the placements are great. And it's even better if what we do is we combine that by, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong page here. I'm going to go back to the overview real quick. So I know the relevant sites, and now I can take it back and go to my in-market audiences and say, okay, if you're on this site and you're in these audiences, and I can even maybe eliminate my 18 to 24-year-olds and say, you know what, okay, you're in the right age group, you're in one of my core in-market ages, you're in one of my in-market audiences, and you're going to a related site, strong possibility that you are in my audience. I can exclude my current site traffic. So now I'm getting all new people to my site, and I'm finding all these opportunities just using the new SEMrush tool, which for most digital marketers out there will give you a significant step up. Next one that I think is very interesting is the social media distribution strategy. So this basically just shows you on the total market, this is everybody right here in the top. What's the overall, what's the average breakdown? But because averages hide insights, I can actually go to specific competitors. Here, am I looking at PwC? Whoopsies, sorry. This is my custom audience. Sorry, we're doing one in the financial world for outsourced CFO firms. So we'll switch up for a second. But point being, once this happens, we'll be happy. There we go. What it will tell me basically is on the social space, what's the average? And then what are specific competitors doing? Who is owning a specific channel, right? So here's ha.com, and I can actually go in and I can add Ruby Lane. I can add Collectors Weekly. I can add CoinBook. I can add Coin Week. We're going to do Bid TFA. We'll add them ourselves. We'll add collectors, and we'll add coin trackers. And once all those go in, our internet's a little bit slow as the whole world works from home. Let's see if that helps a little bit. Come on. What we'll see here, especially over here, is what we're going to look for on the traffic generation side is any differences that are really material. And if I go to custom market again, sorry, let's go back down here. I've got my social media distribution strategy. Again, sorry, this is in our old ones. But what you can see, again, what I was talking about very specifically, here's the market. So you can see lots of focus on Pinterest for finance companies. That seems wrong. Some Facebook, some LinkedIn, some Twitter. But then I can actually go to my market leader and say, okay, well, how's Deloitte doing it? And what I can see here is YouTube, Facebook, but the majority is LinkedIn, right? So what I might do here and say, okay, this is good. I should check out Deloitte on LinkedIn, see what they're doing. PwC, I might switch over and say, you know what, PwC's game here, it does appear they're getting a significant amount of traffic from Twitter. That's interesting. I should check that out. While Ernst & Young is pretty balanced across LinkedIn, Twitter, other, and Facebook, with Facebook being about 30%. So this would give me an idea of what to look for. What is each competitor doing? The Corporate Finance Institute, for instance, I can see they're on Reddit. So everything here is significantly diverged from the market, but it gives me a very clear idea of what to look at from each competitor at each given time. All right. So Craig, I think, does that give us a pretty good overview? I want to be conscious of time. Is there anything else that we have some questions we can answer?
Yeah, okay. Go for questions and answers now.
Let's do it.
I think you have covered a hell of a lot of stuff there and shown the audience that there's a hell of a lot of stuff that you can do with this data. But what will be, everyone, we're going to do some questions and answers now. It can be relating to the tool. It can be relating to whatever you want. If you want to just have a chit chat, we're also happy to do that because we know everyone's bored. But while you're still on your screen, Sam, Stephen Fadge is asking, can you please go over the strategy for not competing on competitor brand names directly?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things that I like to do, and this is something that's difficult, especially for a number of our challenger brands that are trying to compete for traffic from established brands, right? The natural temptation is to run search campaigns, potentially, YouTube conquest campaigns, and those campaigns are really expensive, especially from a search perspective. A competitor branded search campaign is going to be pricey. But one of the things we can do, especially with this, the Market Explorer, is understand where are the same people that are going to my target site, my competitor site, where are they going for other information? One example here, if we just switch to SEMrush, I can look at Moz, right? Moz is a very nice platform. We just load this up, but competing for Moz.com or some of these very specific branded channels is going to be expensive. So my focus is generally, okay, where are they going that is not that, where I can advertise? And that's where the relevant sites comes in handy. And this will give you a whole list of sites where people that are looking for Moz are also going to these sites. And this is all powered by that clickstream data. That makes it cool because it's not guessing. It's not extrapolating. It's about 200 million users worth of clickstream data, which is awesome. And I can look and I can find all of these different sites. Then what I usually do here is I'll export the entire report. It shows up. And I can add these domains into a placements targeting on either Google or my DSP. And now all of a sudden I've got a built-in competitor targeting, but what I'm doing is I'm going after them before they're ever even searching for the competitor. I'm getting in front of the competitor search. That's a lot cheaper. It's a lot more effective. And it also broadens it up a significant amount. Because if I'm searching for instance, in this case, Moz, it's going to be difficult for somebody that's looking for Moz to win that search, right? It's going to be difficult to win that moment. But if I get in front of them before they even know they need Moz, while they're maybe browsing Search Engine Land or Search Engine Watch or Search Engine Journal or SEO Clerk, right? If I get in front of them then, now all of a sudden I've got a really good chance. I can either do that in terms of an on-site placement or by building a custom in-market audience and including these. So you've got two different ways you can do it. You can do a placements targeting campaign going after people that are visiting these sites because you believe they're qualified, or you can do a custom intent or custom in-market audience campaign where I add all these similar sites in, and now I'm going to reach those people. And especially if I'm doing that, people that are similar to these, like that custom intent, custom in market, I'll probably overlay additional criteria that were provided back here in the overview down here when I go to in-market audience interests. So I can overlay those and really get myself a good audience of people that are looking for what I've got or what my client has. I have good reason to believe that they're likely to be customers, but they're not searching yet. So what I'm reaching them before that moment where they've already got a brand in their head or they're already doing the research. And that does seem to pay significant dividends for a number of our clients.
Interesting, very interesting stuff. Jacqueline McMullen not often we have someone with the name McMullen on here. Hopefully that's someone from Scotland. We don't often get Scottish people on here, but probably not. You probably get a distant relative from there. But Jacqueline's asking, how do you get a total list with all your own competitors?
So if you're looking for a total list, one of the options you might have right here is you can go to the narrow focus. And if you want to export it, you can export either to PNG or go back over here, go to the full report, to my most relevant sites, and then export. And this just gives you the list of all of the people that are in the relevant or similar to you. You can also actually build a custom market where you can add up to 20 domains and then get dynamics of that specific market and always go to your report and export that as well. So you have the option to go to relevant sites. For a narrow focus, which are those that are most relevant, you can select that tab and then export. Or for the entire market, in this case, almost 1,900 sites, you can do that and then export. And once I do this, I would probably want to eliminate the people that I know are not, relevant. Like all of these with like 0 traffic, they can go. And at the top of the SKU here, I've got sites like Hotjar, which might not be the right one. I've got lead pages. These are some sites like maybe even SpyFu, and I'd say, it's not the same, right? I mean, SpyFu has a lot of free features. So, but generally speaking, if you need to export, you just go to the relevant sites, you go over here, and in the upper right is the export tab, and it'll give you a CSV, which you can just put into Excel and manipulate as you see fit.
Good answer. Guys, keep your questions coming. We do have 13 minutes left to take advantage of my time or Sam's time or whatever it's going to be. James McKiernan's asking, is there a way to look at these competitors based on geographic region or locality?
That's a great question. There is actually. So let's look at let's stick with Moz for a second. Let's go over to the Market Explorer. Now what this is going to do here is by default in the top, the only locations that we have are countries basically. And in this top left, right under Market Explorer, what you can do is you can actually look at United States here. And once my computer decides to not do this freezy thing, because I think everybody in the universe is trying to use the internet, I can actually select other locations and get the competitors from those for traffic from those locations as well. That might reveal very small regional competitors. For instance, in the auction market, we've got a number of smaller regional competitors, especially ones like in the UK, for instance. But I can always, for Craig, we're going to go look at the United Kingdom. There we are. All right, so I can switch this over. And what I might find whenever this decides to load is I'm going to get a whole different set of competitors. Like Screaming Frog just showed up and Chartbeat just showed up. Some of these are the same. For instance, our good friends at SEMrush are here, and Moz is very clearly the leader, but we're not going to actually say that because this is a SEMrush webinar. But actually, let's just get rid of them, and you can see an updated competitor list based on the geography you set. The other fun feature while we're here is you can always go back in time all the way to about April. Well, you should be able to go back a little bit further, but in this case, we've got data through about April 2018. And you can look back and see where either your target domain, your current domain, your competitors were all the way back then. And here again, we get a very different leaderboard. As somebody that's working in the industry, a lot of times when you bring on a client, it's difficult to get historical data. This is a great way for, especially at the beginning of a client relationship, pulling a few months of this data and being able to show them, okay, here's where you were, in 2018 to 2019. Here's how much progress you made. Here's the difference that happened. Now, when we can project forward, I've got that historical data. I've got those benchmarks. I've got that precedent so that you can make an even stronger case for the quality of work that you're doing. Or if you're completely buggering it up, then it's also going to be clear. But if that's the case, you're probably not bothering to sit in this webinar, and you're probably not going to be doing that. So for everybody here, I'm sure that's not your problem. But it gives you a really great way for you to understand your market, both from a historical perspective as well as from a regional perspective. The one thing I do wish SEMrush would add here, especially for places like the United States, is like some more state by state or region by region drill downs, especially for industries where, like real estate, for instance, we've got a ton of variance across the country.
I think part of the problem you've got, and someone was asking about, they put in their website and there's not a lot of data coming through from SEMrush. SEMrush kind of need websites that have 10,000 monthly hits to be able to accurately give that information out. And I think when you drill down into certain states, those websites don't have that traffic to be able to do that accurately. So I think obviously over time, as things evolve, things like that will come into play. But yeah, just for anyone thinking, it would be cool to just have like Chicago there or whatever. There's just probably not always enough data to accurately do that. Jock Stender, how does SEMrush's Market Explorer and Traffic Analytics differ from SparkToro? Who's SparkToro? No, I'm only kidding. I know SparkToro. SparkToro, SEMrush, everyone's got I'm not familiar with SparkToro, and obviously, I'm sure all of these tools do have good data. But I'm not sure. Do you use SparkToro, Sam?
So we're starting. They're still in their invite phase, but from what I understand from various conversations with Rand and the SparkToro team, their product uses a number of data sources very similar to this. They were using some of the jump shot data, which has since been shut down, but they are rebuilding it. I also know, especially on the social side, SparkToro's got some really cool features. Absolutely, really excited to play with it more. My initial plan, kind of what I'm where my head's at in terms of tools, is we've moved a lot of our focus over to SEMrush for our overall website competitor, website update, website health, SEO, backlinks, etc. We're moving more of our marketing research in terms of placements, etc., over to SEMrush as well, just because the features are built out, they're robust, and they're available. SparkToro, our initial plan is to use them for a lot of influencer and social, because it seems like their data is strongest in those two areas, and compare with SEMrush and Moz, just to kind of get a feel of where everybody's strengths and weaknesses are. We end up more or less modeling everything in-house anyway. When we export all this data, we put it into our models and figure out and adjust a little bit. But yeah, I think SparkToro they've built a great platform. I have no reason to doubt that they won't be successful in the future, and they do have a lot of access to the same data sources that come in here. The difference just tends to be how those data sources are manipulated, how they're used, what type of ML engines are being used to crunch all that data, how reliable it is. And then there's also a user and an ongoing evolution component, which I think SEMrush is uniquely well positioned in the market to have good insights in terms of how people are using it and what's actually happening via some of the other features they already offer. So in general, I'm really excited to see what SparkToro ends up doing. My initial plan is to use them really heavily on the social side for some social advertising, influencer outreach, and understanding some influence sites and networks of influence. But we still use SEMrush as our primary engine at this point, because again, data quality, history, track record, etc., is quite strong overall. So we feel pretty comfortable with how it's
very strong. I'm only kidding.
All right, Sam, it's a SEMrush webinar. It's brilliant. It's the best data. There's no better data.
But genuinely, certain people with different data are good at different things. But Yeah, each to their own. We do have Jackie, I think it was Jackie Richmond. Yeah, Jackie Richmond, can you please demonstrate using this tool for research on a subdomain?
Absolutely, sure. So we have a couple of different options that we have here, but if we're going to do a subdomain, so let's do something like coins.ha.com. This is a subdomain of Heritage Auctions. We're going to have to go back to the United States. All right, we don't have any of that. That's a problem. So let's go back to our traffic analytics. We're going to go back to our base domain, ha.com. I'm going to go to the subdomain right here. Here's my initial feedback on the subdomain. So this is going to give you a sense of total traffic. The one challenge that we do usually have, especially for something like a subdomain, is really understanding all of the details going into each one, since we only look at the root a lot of times. What I can do is, let me see here. If I go back to our Market Explorer, yeah, unfortunately, our subdomain stuff is a little limited, but, and I can see if there's another one that might be, let's try Smile just to see if it has enough data. I'm a little worried there.
Someone's saying you might have forgot to turn back the time to...
we're in March. No, we're in March. We should be good. That's weird. So if you wanted to look at the subdomains, the first place to start, we'll just do that, is go here. We're just going to look at Amazon real quick because I know they have enough data. Right here at the top, I'm going to Traffic Analytics. You're going to go down to these little file folder tabs and go over to subdomains. And this gives you a printout of all the different subdomains on one of these. Unfortunately, if you have the ability to view it, but in terms of understanding what's happening there, it's a little bit difficult. Now, what you can do, a very interesting approach that you can do here is then, once I have the subdomain I want to analyze, for instance, smile.amazon.com or Seller Central, right? What I can do is I can go back to the top pages report. If you're really curious and you want to understand what's happening on that particular subdomain page, I can go to my total top pages report and then filter by page with Smile. Right, so now here, what this is going to do is it's going to give me the objective rank of every single page. It's going to give me sources of traffic for every single page within that subdomain. And I can also see desktop mobile splits. So for instance, I can see that there's a definite discrepancy here between Smile and S. I can see, for instance, my sign-ins, primarily desktop. I can even look at what are people doing in terms of what are they adding? Is it the carts? Are they looking? Here's my my thank you page. Here's a virtual storefront, and you can see breakdowns in terms of how are they getting here. Most people go to the homepage from search. And then I assume from social, most people are also going to the homepage. This is Amazon again, but we could always go to something like ha.com, so we can go back to Heritage Auctions. And then I can look for coin. This gives me all of my subdomain activity for coins.ha.com, and I can also see for each individual page where the traffic is coming from, about how many unique visitors are there. So as a quick example, I might look and see, okay, this is really interesting that the search results, I've got about 180,000 unique page views and about 59,000 unique visitors. That's interesting because it means somebody's searching multiple times. Most people are searching multiple times. Does that mean their search function doesn't work as well as it should? Or does that mean people are just really interested in spending a lot of time on the site? That's something that might merit further inquiry. I can also use that data and kind of overlay it over different things that I'm seeing. And my Roomba has an error. So sorry about that. Anyway, we can always use that. Sorry about that. Okay. We're back. I can always use some of that insight that I get from there and, do an analysis on the competitor site page, for instance, the search page or the search results, and actually test that out and say, what's happening here? But sometimes just looking at those little relationships between the different unique visitors to unique page views, different entrance sources, different device splits can be really helpful in terms of understanding what's going on. And you always have the ability, as Craig showed, to move things around, to deselect, or to create your own custom table. By default, I usually just export every single piece of data, and then I cut out what I don't want. But does that answer your question, Jackie?
I'm sure it does. You went into some good detail there. Sadly, for Lumi, we are out of time, but someone has put a keyword research guide in there. Lumi, just to quickly answer it, do keyword research. It's the you always want to look for keywords that are not overly competitive, that are going to get you traffic. That's a common keyword research strategy. Go after long tails and stuff like that. But you can Google a whole lot of stuff and look at the link on there, Lumi, and that will answer that. But we pretty much answered every question, Sam. So that was
sweet.
Spot on. You can stop sharing your screen now. We are sadly out of time for today. But thank you to everyone in the audience who made it along. There was a lot of good people there, a lot of engagement, a lot of questions. And thanks to yourself, Sam. That was great insights on how you use the tool and to do your research. So yeah, thank you everyone for being on the show, and we will catch up with you in the near future on another webinar, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Great to have everybody. Stay safe out there.
Yep, stay safe, everyone. And if you want to join one of the Zoom beer parties, make sure you get on SEMrush, on the SEMrush All-Stars. People are always looking to interact and stuff. So see you at one of those as well. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect.